Thanks, everyone. Thanks for attending. I'm Grace. I'll be sort of the moderator today. I think we'll keep it kind of informal chat format. So if along the way anyone has any questions, just raise your hand and we'll pass along a mic. So let's start with some introductions. Julian, you want to start?
Okay. Hello, everybody. Glad to be here today. I'm Julien. I'm from France. You might guess from my accent. I'm a technical and data SEO expert. I've been in the industry for more than 12 years now. And before that, I was building websites as a teenager. So I've been on the web for a very long time. And I am very glad to be talking about e-commerce today. So,
thanks. Cool. Kazra?
My name is Kazra Dash. I own a link building agency that fulfills a lot of e-commerce clients. We have got 34 content writers, 17 link builders, and 12 full-time editors. So we do a lot of ranking for e-commerce.
Awesome. Thanks both. And I guess just a little bit about me. I'm Grace. I'm an SEO consultant at Brain Labs, working a lot. Well, I do work on some e-commerce sites as well as other types of websites. Yeah, happy for all you guys to be with us today. Let's start off with talking about e-commerce specifically. How is e-com SEO different from other types of verticals?
Do you want to go first?
why not? Yeah, so I might be a bit biased because I mainly work on larger websites, so on technical issues and stuff. But in my opinion, it does not change much, in fact, whether you're e-commerce or classifieds or a media or stuff. When you're focusing on technical stuff, you still will build internal links, focus on page speed and stuff, etc. So yeah, there are some specific issues for e-commerce, but in fact you kind of see the same kind of issues on other kinds of websites. So yeah, in my opinion, there's not really a very specific e-commerce SEO kind of.
So I would say from an off-page SEO point of view, the biggest thing is making sure your pagination's set up correctly. So you've not got 6 or 7 different pages deep. From an off-page SEO point of view, I would probably say that link building to your category pages, which then passes power to all your product pages, helps a lot. And from an on-page SEO point of view, making sure that your product descriptions are all unique, making sure that you have content on all of your category pages, and also unique images. Unique images is massive at the minute. Everyone that throws up any affiliate websites, any e-commerce websites, they're using duplicate images. So if you can brand up your images with your logos, with your website URL, you have a higher chance of ranking your images as well, which is massive when it comes to e-commerce.
Cool. Yeah, nice. And I imagine that generally speaking, and from your experience, e-com websites tend to be massive or much larger than other types of verticals, or is that not really your experience?
Not always, no.
Not always.
Well, I mean, there are very niche brands, for example, with very small websites that still are e-commerce websites. And of course, you've got huge websites with million pages, million products and stuff. So yeah, all sizes really. But yeah, as I said earlier, I'm personally more focused on larger websites. And yeah, what you said about optimizing images and having unique images is very important. But again, it's very important for e-commerce. But if you're a media, for example, and you can rely on your own images, it's also having a great impact on your SEO potential. Whether if you're using images from Adobe stock or stuff like that, well, probably all your competitors are using the same images, so you're not having a competitive advantage.
I have clients that have like 10, 15 products up until 20,000 products, so the size of the website doesn't really matter. One thing I will say is we also deal with a lot of affiliates that have 6,000, 7,000 pages that aren't e-commerce pages at all. So I think the biggest thing just comes back to categorizing your products or categorizing your posts on your blog and stuff. The size of the website just doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I'd say that the smaller the websites, the more focused you have to be on optimizing, of course, for SEO, but also making sure that you display what brand you are, what values you are defending and stuff, so that you differentiate yourself from all your competitors, whether they're also smaller niche brands or huge players like Amazon or stuff. So yeah.
Okay. So I imagine smaller sites might be a bit easier in terms of strategy for ranking your product pages. But for larger sites, it might be a bit of a challenge. So my question is, if you could only prioritize product listing pages or product detail pages, which would you choose?
So what we do is we essentially, if we were going to go and build out another Argos, for example, we would niche down and essentially build one category and make sure that everything from the products that's going live to the links that's been placed and also the blog articles is just talking about, let's say, running shoes. Once we have covered the topic in its entirety, that's when we will go and talk about, I don't know, outdoor furniture and then maybe TVs. But making sure that everything is talking about the one subject is super important. So that's how we essentially scale out big e-commerce websites. So to answer your question, is it easier to rank a smaller site or a harder website? It's a very similar process, but you just need to start small, cover the topic in its entirety, and then move on to the next subject.
So essentially, it's kind of like a hub and spoke model you're
Definitely.
talking about. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I'd say that, in fact, that's kind of part of my talk for tomorrow morning.
Oh.
But what I'd focus on is not especially whether I should work on category pages or product pages, but mainly what are the pages that would bring the most business to my clients, really. And so, yeah, sometimes it's category pages, but sometimes it's product pages, because you know that, well, I might be making some stuff up here, but if I'm ranking first on iPad, for example, I know I will sell a lot of these, whether it's an iPad mini or a bigger one. So I should focus on the category page, but if I'm ranking very well on a very specific product, I don't know, like I like cycling, for example. If I'm very good on some specific model of bikes, yeah, maybe that's the one I should be focusing on.
Okay. By the way, do you see users like search from their iPads? I'm just curious.
Well, we mostly don't bother with tablet traffic. Maybe we should. But yeah, I think most of the industry, myself included, are focusing whether on mobile and desktop. And the tablet part in analytics, for example, we don't really look at. That's probably not the best way of looking at things, but on most of the websites I work with, it's such a small part of traffic that yeah, it always comes last.
Yeah. Okay.
I would say that it depends on the niche. So, for example, we have a e-commerce website that does a lot of office supplies, and typically if you're buying a load of chairs, for the office, you're going to be on the office desktop. But if you're buying, let's say, running shoes, you might be on your phone. Again, it just massively depends on the industry. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. So going back to kind of product, page types, product page types. So I wanted to kind of talk about AI and search generative experience. What do you see as the next thing for e-commerce when trying to anticipate SGE coming into, coming to the UK? I don't think it's in the UK yet, but what kind of strategy would you do? What would you do differently to anticipate that?
Well, from what I've seen and tested a bit, one of the usages that I saw was comparison. So I talked about iPads, so yeah, you may be hesitating between several models. Well, with SGE you can compare these, and I think as website editors or optimizers, we should focus maybe on making sure we are providing Google and other search engines with the right format for them to be able to compare our different products, for example. So yeah, that's probably one of the focuses I would imagine for the next few months. Other than that, what I'm really impressed is not particularly directly linked to SGE, but it's also, again, regarding images. Image search is, in my opinion, growing and getting bigger and bigger. So yeah, that's also, again, a big focus I would have.
One thing that we've started doing is we've started manipulating SGE by getting loads of other websites talking about the products on our e-commerce website. So if somebody was to start running, or somebody was to start searching for best running shoes, what we've essentially trained SGE to do is spit out the running shoes that's on our website. And as everybody knows, SGE cites your website, so it links back to your website. So if anybody wants to buy the Cadra Dash 445 running shoe, they click the link, go to cadradash.com, and they will essentially be displayed with the running shoe that we've been essentially manipulated. And the way that we've done that is by getting loads of guest posts to talk about our 6 or 7 running shoes, or the tables that we're selling, or whatever that we're selling on the e-commerce website. So that's one thing that we've started to do. Works out really well at the minute. So yeah.
Oh, nice. Have either of you had the opportunity to test SGE yet?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Nice. What's your takeaway?
I think it's essentially like the featured snippets. Everyone was really scared when the featured snippets got released 2 years ago. They were like, oh my God, my CTRs were tanked, or nobody's going to click through to my website. And essentially, if you structured your featured snippet to essentially like tease the answer, but then it would be like, click here for more info, people would still click on and go through to your website. That's what I think SGE is essentially like. You will probably lose a little bit of CTR through to your website, but I think that's probably given because Google wants more people on their platform. But yeah, I feel like there's going to be some sites that are absolutely going to get demolished by it, especially the guys that have been doing the FAQs and stuff. But there's also going to be some sites that are going to benefit from it as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I think kind of the same. In fact, I was having this conversation with a friend just last week, in fact. And yeah, he was telling me it's the death of SEO, as we always say. And that's exactly what I answered. You know, like maybe 12 years ago, we had not provided. It was the death of SEO. We're still here.
Yeah.
FAQs, rich snippets and stuff. So I think we can't really imagine what our job will be in the next few years, but I'm sure we will adapt. And yeah, maybe the SERPs will look a lot different. I'm not entirely sure about this because I believe still costs a lot of money for Google or Bing to run SGE at the scale of the web. But yeah, whatever happens, we will need to adapt to this. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right. That's not the first time we've heard the death of SEO.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's more of like an evolution. Cool. And just a reminder, if anyone has any questions, raise your hand. We'll run a mic. Oh, we have one question. Sorry.
Thank you very much. So I'm curious because recently I stumbled upon a client site which had a lot of funky parameters, right? Now in e-commerce it's all about parameters so that you'll have different filtering systems and so on. And I was looking at Search Console, but back in the days of webmaster tools, we had the setting that we could actually specify the parameters, what they would do. But I couldn't find it anywhere, and it was deprecated apparently. So in e-commerce, where there's a lot of parameters, how would you control whether the parameters is filtering or whether it's changing anything on the pages? And does Google actually get it right all the time? Or are there issues with the parameters?
Good question. Yeah?
okay, so what I do is maybe try not to relate too much on parameters, in fact, and try to rewrite the URLs that matter to me. So maybe all combinations of filters and stuff don't make sense for SEO. So yeah, you have to maybe rewrite the ones that make sense for you, that could bring traffic, and maybe keep the other ones as parameters so that you can more easily manage the crawl from Google on those URLs with parameters. So whether with canonicals to tell it that it's kind of the same page, or just by preventing Googlebot to crawl it from the robots.txt file, for example. So yeah, it's, as we always say, it depends. But yeah, I would try not to have too many parameters and try to rewrite URLs. We've been doing this for like 20 years, maybe. But yeah, it's, in my opinion, it's making things easier to then manage your inventory of URLs on a website.
Perfect, thank you.
Oh, we've got
Cool.
another question.
Oh, yeah, another question up here.
Hey, kind of a follow-up to your answer to that question. Why create the URLs for those in the first place?
Can you repeat that question, please?
Yeah, you mentioned having basically SEO-friendly URLs for facets that you'd want indexed, and then keeping the URLs as parameters. For the ones that you don't want Google to crawl and index, or to index, or that you don't expect to bring in traffic. My question is why bother creating URLs for those in the first place, versus just having an experience where...
Well, that's a good question. In my experience, the problem is most of the time we arrive later on the project, so the URLs already are here, and you've got to manage what exists already. In a perfect world or in a perfect project where you can be part of the creative decision process, yeah, you would try to only have the relevant URLs and pages on your website. But as I'm sure many of you know, it's not always the case. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
I was just trying to Hi, you mentioned earlier implementing unique images. I'm just curious, for a large-scale e-commerce, like I'm talking 100,000 products, millions of products, like you mentioned earlier, how would you justify the ROI to either a client or a manager if you're working internally?
For optimizing images.
Yeah. So I mean, you want to, let's say, you have duplicated images, unoriginal images, and you want to create product images for 100,000 products or a million, I guess.
What I would do in your scenario is go into Google Search Console, swap over to images, and see what your impressions and your clicks are. If you're getting like decent amount of impressions, as opposed to not getting any clicks, I would certainly suggest it. However, some e-commerce stores aren't visual, so you won't get much visual traffic, but definitely go into Google Search Console, swap over to images, and then see what the impressions and clicks are saying.
And from this ROI perspective, like it will definitely generate a cost to make those images, obviously for the business. How would you say, but by doing this particular action, I would get this amount of return? How would you estimate that?
That's a tricky question.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah,
it
guess
depends. It depends on the price of your product. If it's a £10 shoe, then you might not want to do it. If it's a £300 desk, you might want to do it.
Yeah, to say things otherwise, you should prioritize, in fact, especially on larger websites. You can't have unique images for every product. If you're working on marketplaces, for example, it's just impossible because you don't control the amount of product and the information you get. So it's a bit as what I said earlier. You have to focus on your top pages, your top products. On those specific products, maybe try to get unique images. If you can get those on the rest of your inventory, that's great. But realistically, on larger websites, you won't ever have 100% unique images.
Yep. Okay, thanks.
Thanks. More questions?
Hey, so more of a question for casual, as you touched on guest post links. So I have two questions. Number one, how do you find sites that actually get links on? And number two, when you find those sites, how do you actually acquire those links? Like, do you pay for them? Because I know a lot of people say paying for links is not a white hat, it's black hat and grey hat. Do you agree with that? It'd be good to get your thoughts on that.
So we have a massive outreach team. They outreach to about 2,500 websites every single day.
Oh, wow.
Some cases we do pay for links. Some cases we will find an issue on the actual guest post website. We'll say, hey, you have a 404 image. If we redo that image for you, can you also link back to us? And they'll essentially give us a free link. I do think that it definitely does work. Google isn't tracking my PayPal. So anyone that says link building and paying for links is against Google's T's and C's, maybe they should have a conversation with all of my clients because I'm getting results.
No, awesome. That's good. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if there are many French people in the room, but that's always kind of funny for me because the link building market in France is a lot focused on paid links, and it seems to me like in the UK, for example, you're a lot more reluctant to be paying for links. But quite frankly, when like 99% of the market is doing this, you should be fine.
Paying for links.
Yeah.
Yeah, we pay for links every day. It's the only way. We have questions about the descriptions on description and copy in general on category pages. What do you guys think? We see a lot of big sites completely removing copy on category pages. Other sites keep them short. Other sites implementing FAQs. Other sites still leaving big, long description with a lot of keyword stuffing. We try to test a lot this, and we don't get real clear results. But I see a lot of big brands, especially, completely removing that copy. So, what are you guys' thoughts on this, and what should we do?
We've tested this quite a bit. What we typically have got the best results from doing is we'll have long form content with underneath a read more button. So if somebody does want to read the content, which literally nobody does, they can do. But what we typically do is we'll internal link from that category page to 10 different other category pages, and then we'll hit that page with a load of links. So the link power is going through to 6 or 7 different categories. So you're essentially powering everything up. It's essentially just internal linking your blog post pages. That's what we typically do, and we've seen the best results from doing it. Very, very rarely we've removed content from any category pages, very rarely. We always typically do what everybody else is doing. So we'll correlate what the top 10 results are doing. If they have 6,000 words, we'll try and match that. We'll obviously use tools such as Market Muse, Surfer SEO, auto blogging. We'll generate the content. We'll maybe even get an editor on it, add any FAQs, and we'll essentially build links to that page.
Okay, yeah, we do the same, but yeah, I just saw a lot of the brands completely removing, and to see if there is a reason for this, I'm not sure.
Well, first of all, I would maybe focus on your topic, on your competitors, see what they are doing. Because if you are the only one having a very long text, for example, it's probably strange against your competitors. And then maybe food for thought, but I've seen a study recently in France showing that the best pages, the ones that were ranking first or second, usually on many topics had shorter text than the others on the first page of results. So yeah, maybe focusing on better quality and better optimized text, maybe shorter, is sometimes better. Of course, it depends, because on different industries, people don't always expect the same things. But yeah, I kind of feel like we've had like a race to having the longer text possible on some industries in SEO, and that's not always productive. And having text on web pages that nobody will care about is just maybe money not well spent, in my opinion.
Great, thank you. Good questions. Oh, another one. Yeah.
So you've been speaking a lot about link building. I've been in SEO for about 15 years. When I first got into SEO, link building was huge. I saw it work firsthand, time and time again. Now I find myself, so I'm personally head of SEO at a large e-commerce website in the US. We've got about a 30-person SEO team working on lots of different things. We do not do any link building because I don't believe in it. But I also will not pretend to say that I know everything. And so my question for you, because you've talked about it a lot, what would you say to me to convince me that I should prioritize link building?
What do you use for your link building? Like, if you were to do link building, would you use Ahrefs to look at metrics? Like, tell me a little bit more about your process.
Yeah, I mean, we could use any tool. Like, typically we're using like SEO Clarity.
Because a lot of the tools at the minute, including Ahrefs, obviously I'm not wearing the badge. No disrespect. DR can be manipulated. I don't know what SEMrush's metric.
Yeah, my point was that we don't do any link building.
But,
but should we?
Definitely.
Yeah.
When I say link building works, I'm not trying to disrespect the content guys, because
Sure.
I know brilliant content ranks. Like, I've ranked websites without any links as well, in tough industries, gambling, right? That's not to say that you should do one or the other. There's certain people that I'll speak to in my network that are absolutely amazing at writing content, like Corey, for example. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's on another level when it comes to topical maps and stuff like that. I'll speak to him about content, but I'll not speak to him about links. I'll go and speak to someone like Matt Diggy about links, or somebody that has had a link building agency. DR can be manipulated. Like, I know what to look for when I'm looking at building links. I know that a DR 75 link, I can go and get like a Fiverr gig that will boost my DR up to 65, 70, and then I can go and sell guest posts on it. Links like that isn't going to pass power. So for people like yourself, that's probably why you might not believe in link building. You might have been essentially acquiring the wrong type of links. And that's not your fault, by the way.
Sure.
But I feel like when people say links don't work, it's probably because they've been buying the wrong type of links.
Yeah, I would say for me it's not so much about that. It's that I think of Google as trying to do what's best for the user, right? Obviously that's not true because they make all their money from ads, but in a perfect world. And I don't see how in today's world, with Google's understanding of intent and with things like Bard and GPT-4, how links could be the deciding factor in whether a page is relevant or not.
We actually done a case study, and I'll be talking about this in my talk tomorrow. We essentially built bad links to a website, and only 15 bad links as well, and the website tanked. we essentially removed those links and placed good links, actual good links, not just high DR, and the website increased by 120%. So links is definitely part of the algorithm. You just need to know what you're buying.
Cool. Thank you.
No worries.
Oh, I thought he's going to throw down the gauntlet there.
Absolutely not.
I really want to make the links. That's
We can have a talk after, definitely.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about the? I want to know your opinion on this. I'm going to give you a little context. In the country I come from, all the biggest e-commerce sites, they all look the same. They all like made by the one template. They just different colors. So, what do you think of this statement? How far can I take my e-commerce site only by doing hardcore SEO, by going fully blindly on UI and UX?
So I guess just to clarify, if you purely focus on SEO for your e-com site, how far can you go?
Yeah, how far can I take it? Can I even make it to becoming a very big e-commerce site?
It's a very open-ended question.
Because you have a larger scope of experience than me, and I can only talk about my country because I have made some research, and those sites are typically they're very similar, and I wouldn't say that they are made for users. They're
Just
doing only hardcore SEO.
Sorry, just so I understand the question, is it how many templates do you need, or what's...
No, the question is, I want to know your opinion. How far can I take an e-commerce site by ignoring UI, UX, and overall how the site looks by just doing hardcore SEO?
You can do, so it depends on how spammy the tactic you want to go down, right? But have you ever heard of Conch House? So they used 100% duplicate content. They used 301 expired domains and smashed an absolute crazy amount of links to that website. And they got 1.1 million traffic in the space of 3 months. The website looked absolutely atrocious. 4 months after, or maybe 2 months after, they got hit. You can do a lot of damage within 2 or 3 months' time just by mass producing content, doing 301 redirects to a domain, and hitting a load of links. So when it comes to the template, it doesn't really matter, but just be wary of you can get hit by doing that.
Yeah, I'd say we're not 2010 anymore, you know. As I said earlier, especially on niche brands, what you would want to focus is being different than the others. It's maybe a bit tricky in e-commerce, but you probably have in your memory some strange navigation experience, for example, on some websites. But I'm personally convinced that some of my clients on their industry, it's not especially e-commerce, but they perform very well because their website is really not looking like the competitors on this specific industry. I can't get into much detail, but let's say we've got lots of websites that look kind of the same, you know, like landing pages, a lot of text, a few images and stuff. And my client comes in with a list of products and a map. And yeah, they perform very well against the others. So yeah, I believe that you can't nowadays just focus on SEO and let the rest apart. But if you arrive with some experience that makes you shine against your competitors, it will probably be useful in terms of user experience, but in terms of SEO as well. You can maybe think about, you know, a lot of clothing e-commerce brands who, for example, try to help you select the right size for your t-shirt or your pants or stuff. That's a great tool for users, but I'm sure it has an impact for SEO as well.
Yeah, and just to add on to that too, I think it depends like what your strategy is. Are you focused on like a long-term strategy do you want repeat customers? If that answer is yes, then maybe it is important to kind of think about not just SEO, but also user experience. Yeah, so it depends on what your goal is.
Thanks.
Sure. Another question? Yeah.
Hi, Martin Adams from Mattress Online. My question is around the Google Core updates. What is your perspective on that, and what would you say is the kind of top trend right now that we should be thinking about?
Sorry, did you say you're from Mattress Online?
Yeah, can you tell what we do?
I've bought a mattress from you.
Fantastic. Did you have a good service?
Yeah, really good. So your question was, what's our thoughts on the core algorithm update?
Yeah.
Google Core updates.
So from our testing, and we have got access to over 1,000 websites, we see the biggest jumps, especially when it comes to like website recovery after a core algorithm update. What we have also seen is when you are looking at your links and stuff like that, that's when Google essentially recrawls all of your links. So say, for example, you've done a disavow, that's when you will see the biggest impact from your disavow. So a lot of people will think, oh, I've done my disavow, I'm going to see results in 2 weeks' time. It's not the case. So a lot of the times you need to wait for a core algorithm update. Same goes with any big silos that you essentially tweak around. So say, for example, you've generated a load of AI articles, and then you've actually went and essentially re-edited those with an actual editor. When Google recrawls, the most amount of your pages is after a core algorithm update. So that's when we see a lot of jumps and then also a lot of dips as well. So for example, one of the websites that got hit was News Direct, and another was Outlook India. I think News Direct is down about 46%, Outlook India is down about 23%. Those websites were absolutely flying before the core algorithm update. They've absolutely tanked after the core algorithm update. So that's my views on core algorithm updates.
Yeah, what I'd add is maybe on a broader image, Google for years now has been talking to us about expertise, authority and stuff. And yeah, I'd really focus on that, especially on e-commerce, because it's kind of easy for us to think about that on your money, your life topics. But on e-commerce, we often don't think about that. But yeah, giving your users perspective about your product and building trust, in fact, around your brand is probably a good insurance that you won't be too much impacted by core updates. So apparently your brand is a bit known here. I'm not from the UK, so you probably are doing already a good job about that.
Great. Do you mind if I just add a comment to the previous question and just get your opinion? So talking about all sites look the same, should we just go hardcore SEO and worry about the user experience because nobody else is caring about the user experience? One model that I've always applied is if someone clicks on your link and bounces and goes back to Google to continue their search, you're essentially telling Google that was a bad link. So I think, well, yes, everybody else is doing that, that's your competitive advantage. That if you can keep that customer on your site and not send them back to Google, then that should signal good. That's my opinion. Does that sound reasonable?
I would agree. So if you ever did want to do a negative SEO attack, that's one thing that you could probably do, and you would get a lot of results from doing. There's a lot of people that I speak to out in the States that essentially do that for like digital PR. Like one of the guys done a lot of digital PR for like Donald Trump and stuff. And I know some people hate him, but he was essentially anything that was negative that was like posted about him, they would essentially send 300 bots, and they would just click, unclick, bounce back, and that page would essentially get sunk to the bottom. So yeah, that does work.
Thank you.
Interesting. Teetering on a bit of black hat, gray hat SEO there. Oh, all the way in the back, yeah.
But,
Hiya. My question is, in e-commerce, what are your guys' stances on like rich results, markup schema, that sort of thing? How important is it in the results that you've managed to achieve with your respective clients, and what would you recommend as best practice at the moment?
Rich results, best practice, what are our recommendations?
Well, I see a lot of brands focusing on FAQs, Well, maybe they will stop a bit now that Google is not showing this so often in the SERPs, but yeah, I've really seen some people like doing this a bit too much, and that's probably why Google reacted that way. Other than that, and to say again what I said earlier, we talked about SGE and being able to provide the right information in the right format. And what I've been able to kind of test on some clients is, for example, making sure that we have some tables on our pages, so that we can list all the specifications of the product, for example. So yeah, this kind of formats, for example, can, in my experience, work quite well. And they also sometimes make your website appear a bit differently in the snippets with an extract from the table, especially. So that's also sometimes a good thing for your CTR. Yeah, maybe
when it comes to schema, we use product and review schema to get the stars, and we have also started using how-to schema. I don't know if any of you guys have seen it. You get like the big free blocks. Yeah. That's mainly for like our blogs and stuff like that. So again, going back to the run and shoe example, if we've got a blog talking about how to run a longer marathon or a quicker marathon, you can essentially use the how-to schema. You get a little bit more real estate in the SERPs. Apart from that, I think that's probably it. In some cases, if any of you guys are in local, which you probably won't be, we use local business schema, and yeah, I think that's it. We don't do much more. When it comes to the actual carousel, so like on our categories, we use I believe it's a Shopify extension. I can message my team and I'll let you know what they say, what they use for that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. And I think I would agree with the product review schema as well, especially with SGE around the corner. I think that will really help Google kind of understand more about the page and make it.
You also get the stars as well at the minute, so you get more click-through rate. So that always helps.
Yeah, for sure.
Quick question about one point you raised earlier, the disavow file.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit hesitant to touch it because usually an organic looking backlink profile has spam. There are all those directories that are pointing up. So in your opinion, how clean, in a percentage wise, how clean would you keep it?
Come to my talk tomorrow and find out more.
Oh.
No, so for the disavow file, there's a few myths. Google does ignore some links. So if I was to go and build 2 million links to your website with anchors like, I don't know, crypto, CBD, etc., Google's smart enough to ignore those links. It's actually the links that you have essentially purchased that are high DR, and it sounds like I'm just hating on Ahrefs. I promise you I'm not, right? I do use Ahrefs, but there's a lot of like links that are link farms that you should probably be worried about. When it comes to like toxicity and thresholds, every website on the internet has a toxicity threshold. What you want to try and do is essentially build to the closest that you can. So, for example, if you're in finance, I would probably say the toxicity threshold is anything between 6 to about 750. You want to try and get to 750 as much as you can. You do not want to be like 300. A lot of people think, oh, I need the cleanest backlink profile, but it's not actually the case. And that's when a lot of people will disavow bad links, and it will actually have a negative impact. In a lot of scenarios, you actually need some bad links. A lot of people will correlate their content, but they won't correlate their backlinks. So if you're like just a clean the clean links guy on the block, Google will see, they'll essentially look at your website and be like, no, you're doing something funny here, and that's when people essentially get slapped when they mess around with their disavow.
Perfect, thank you. And if I can take a little advantage here.
Yeah.
We know the blogspot articles and the links. We know the medium. Do those actually have value today if you put, let's say, hundreds of thousands in bulk?
So with Blogspot and Medium, what we typically do is build tier 2 links. We essentially build links to our links, which pass more power to our money site. So yes, if you're doing that. However, if you just have a Medium, like think of how many pages are on Medium, Forbes, etc. There's like hundreds of thousands, if not millions. You don't want just the link from Forbes. You don't want just the link from Medium. What you want to do is power it up. And in a lot of scenarios, if you get a guest post off Forbes talking about how great your business is, they've not internally linked that, so it's just an orphan page passing no power.
Thanks so much.
Nice. Just a follow up on disavowing links. What's your take on that? Because I know Google recently said that you don't need to disavow links, but what's your opinion?
Is John Mueller in the room? So we've seen 25 websites that have all jumped back up from the recent core algorithm update after doing a disavow, so it definitely does work. We do disavows for like major news publication sites. Some of them acquire like thousands of links in a single day. Those guys get a disavow once a month from us. Some of the guys that are in gambling, etc., they get disavows every quarter. Some of the guys that are in finance, they get disavows every 6 months. My biggest thing about disavows, because I was very similar, I was like, surely not, Google just ignores bad links, etc. A lot of people don't leave a disavow too late, so try and take the antidote before the poison. A lot of times people will think, oh, my website's on an upward trajectory, I don't need a disavow. In a lot of scenarios that we've actually tested out is once you actually have done the disavow, you will see a bigger jump even if your website is on an upward trajectory. Like, so say for example, you have 1,000 referring domains and then you end up doing a disavow. And even if you are ranking for more keywords month on month, after you've done the disavow, you will see a bigger jump in traffic as well. So I'm definitely pro disavows.
Okay. Juliana?
In my experience, but to be honest, I don't have a very recent one. These last few years, disavowing or not disavowing did not have really any impact on my clients' websites. But then again, it was maybe a couple years ago last time, so I'm not the freshest experience on the topic.
I think you're right. It might depend on the vertical of your business as well. Because it seems like certain verticals need it while others don't. Well, if there's no other questions, I have a question. Actually, curious to know, with AI, have you tried leveraging AI in your work, and what kind of results have you seen?
Really good results. So I have recently, if you'd spoke to me a year ago, I was dead against AI content. I've recently invested in autoblogging.ai, which is essentially a mass AI tool that scrapes the SERP and essentially writes the article for you, correlating as to what is NLP, all the questions and answers and stuff like that. It has definitely sped up the process. Now, there is a guy on YouTube as well, you can check him out, called Julian Goldie. He has scaled out a Amazon affiliate website, 0 to about 500,000 hits a month just by using that, and essentially just by using the auto linking as well. So he'll mass produce 2,500, 3,000 pages, and he's seen some really good results. My team also use it. And we have also got editors going back in as well. So one thing that a lot of people do is they'll mass produce a load of content and they won't go back in and update the articles. So you need to freshen up your articles. The best running shoes today ain't going to be the best running shoes in 6 months' time. So if you are going to take advantage of AI content, make sure that you are essentially keeping everything up to date as well.
Thanks.
Yeah, we talked a bit about images also, and I believe it's maybe one of the topics I would try to use AI on, especially on larger websites, because as I said earlier, you definitely can't get unique images for millions of products at a time, but maybe if you use tools like Stable Diffusion or Midjourney or stuff like that, it's possible to get kind of in the middle of things. And yes, that's also maybe one topic we should be focusing on, just not content production with AI, but also image. And then on the content side of things, what I really like to do is also to ask ChatGPT, for example, to summarize the description of a product, for example, so that I can maybe give my clients some key features for each product, and that's manageable at scale on any website, really. As long as you've got the right prompt, let's say, you can do this on millions of pages without too much worry. So yeah, that's also maybe one of the focuses I would have with AI.
Cool.
Got a question there?
We have a question. Yeah. Oh.
So on this topic of AI-generated content, any experience around international e-commerce, like business in multiple languages? How do you feel about either translating content or localizing it somehow? Any kind of ideas on a process for that, especially at scale, at large scale?
Yeah, in my opinion, that's one of the usages of AI that works best at the moment. To be honest, what I would be kind of worried about is how easy it is for Google, for example, to detect that it's an automated translation. But then again, if I'm putting myself in Google's shoes, okay, it might be automated translation, but if it's relevant for the user, it's maybe not a problem. To be honest, I have not been able to test this yet, at scale at least, but yeah, I would definitely go on with automated translation, and maybe not with ChatGPT, for example, but maybe with DeepL. And as I'm saying this, I'm also thinking that some friends of mine did some testing, and what they found out was that on different verticals, they had better results with ChatGPT than with DeepL, or the opposite. So yeah, maybe you should also test the different tools available to make sure you are using the best one.
So with foreign markets, we use WPML. I'm sure you've probably heard of it, WordPress multi-language, I think it is, yeah. With foreign markets, France, Spain, Netherlands, Denmark, Norway, India, you can get away with a lot more. So if you're worried about AI-generated content in the UK and the US SERPs, trust me, you can get away with it in Norway and wherever. What country are you trying to operate in, or trying to?
36 of them. So
36, right? Yeah. The UK and the US should be the ones that you worry about the most. The others is pretty easy to rank in.
Yeah, but my concern is a lot around the quality of the translations, especially for languages that I don't understand or my team doesn't understand, because that can also be the case many times. So how would you vet quality?
Yeah, well, my experience, and it's easy for me because I'm French, is translating content from English to French or the other way, and it's pretty good. But on other languages, maybe try to get a native review for at least a bunch of test content to make sure you are getting some relevant content. Of course, it won't be as perfect as a human translation, but again, when you are operating at scale, you can't be perfect on every metric. So yeah, in my opinion, at least on some languages, it's very good. But yeah, I don't speak Finnish or I don't know what.
Yeah.
Sorry if there are any.
Thank you.
Thanks. Cool. Oh, another one. Yep.
Yeah, hi. In the topic of the translation and localization, how much work would you put into localization content for the US and UK? We working on separate domains, but they are working on the same brand. We have the hreflang, everything, but yeah, how much effort would you put into make a difference between the US and the UK content?
So we have a gambling website that is ranking in the UK, and we're expanding into Canada and also certain states in the US, because some states don't have licenses and stuff. Even from Canada and the US, it's massively different. So like, for example, because it's an affiliate website, the brands and stuff like that are completely different as to what they offer in, for example, Texas. And then also you have CAD, which is Canadian dollars. I think it's CAD. I might be wrong.
Yeah.
And then you also have US dollars as well. So like when you're talking about a certain like bonus, or if you're talking about pricing, it's massively important that you actually give that some time and care.
Yeah, this type of changes we are doing, like the currency, or sometimes there is a product that it's named different in those countries, so we are taking this into account. My question is about the rest of the content, which is just the description of the product.
Yeah.
There is no real like parameters there. It's just fancy few words about it. How much?
So we again on that gambling website, we had a UK writer accidentally write the content for the American site. And we uploaded it and we just left it, didn't rank. We then looked at the content, we're like, oh, he's talking about pounds, etc., etc. We went back in, actually hired a US writer, and they essentially wrote the article as opposed to the spec. And they changed it out for dollars, they changed the spelling of center and stuff like that. It ranked a lot higher. I think it went from position 56 to position 12, and now it's position 3. After like 2 or 3 months. So yeah.
It's not just about dollars or stuff. It's also about expressions, about vocabulary and stuff. For example, again, in France, we speak a different French that the ones they speak in Belgium, the ones they speak in Switzerland,
in Canada,
yeah. And stuff. And yeah, we really don't use the same words for the same things. Especially on stuff that you don't imagine if you're not native. So yeah, I would really try to at least get a native person to kind of create a matching table of which words to use to describe the important topics.
Thank you.
Thanks. I think we're almost at time, but just, I guess, a last bit of advice, maybe your top tip for e-commerce success.
Do you want to start?
You can go first if you want.
Okay. My personal advice would be to have a strategy regarding your expiring content. So what I'm talking about is, for example, products that come out of stock, but also category pages, because sometimes you end up with a category that has no products anymore, and we often don't think about this. So yeah, really again, the solution depends on your industry, but think about what you do with pages that don't have anything to sell anymore.
So top tip number 1 is using unique images, making sure that you've got your logo, the actual page URL of that embed. So if it's on casual-com/running shoes, making sure you actually have that URL and making sure you've got your favicon, your logo, etc. on the actual images. Try and make your images as unique as you can. Tip number 2 would probably be going into your Google Search Console, looking at your secondary keywords that the page URL is ranking for, and essentially using any secondary keywords as internal links from other pages, and also using them as anchors for backlinks. And tip number 3, making sure that your categories are probably like really tight. A lot of people don't cover the topic in its entirety, and a lot of people miss out on zero search volume keywords. So when people do keyword research, they'll only use tools such as Ahrefs and SEMrush. What you can essentially start to do is searching running shoes and then looking at the drop down and seeing what's there. Anything that comes up in the drop down, use those as page titles for either your blogs or your articles, whatever you need, and it will give you a lot more ideas for like building out your pages, building up your hubs and stuff. So yeah, 3 tips. Question.
Oh, I guess one more question. Sorry.
Thank you. So, if you're starting out a new e-commerce platform and you don't have the funds to create a custom-built solution, which platform would you opt for that has the most customizability in terms of SEO?
Either WooCommerce or Shopify.
Thank you.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Nice.
Well, in my opinion, it does not really matter because every CMS, every platform has its advantages and its flaws. And yeah, you have to select the tool you're the most comfortable with. And that's not specific to e-commerce, but for example, I work a lot with a lot of different developer teams. And I think they tend to select a technology because they think it's sexy or something, but they don't know it really. For example, we've probably all worked with JavaScript frameworks a few years ago, and a lot of developers did not know what they were doing. So yeah, I'd say that you need to use a technology you're comfortable with.
Perfect. And so I'm asking because I also had experience with clients with Magento platform.
Oh, Magento.
Yeah, just delete the website.
Thank you.
I think you have your answer. Great. Thank you very much. Thanks for today, both Kazra and Julian. Thanks for joining us today, and have a good rest of the day.